Christ is king, it's where we belong. Stay with the dream, don't lose your way. Right way's the fire that'll light the day. Keep it simple, let the moment arrive. 3-8 trap keeps the hope alive. Hold on tight till the signal's near. Right way's the trail, we're breaking through fear.
Good morning, fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the Morning Market Prep video for November 10th, 2025. Well, welcome back, everyone. It looks like we're shaping up for another wild week, and it's starting off first thing here this morning. If you hadn't heard the news, the Senate passed the refunding agreement finally in the Senate. That will be going to the House for approval, then on to the President's desk for signature to reopen the government. It looks like that could happen as early as tomorrow, maybe Wednesday, depending on how that process goes. But looks like things are set to reopen. Now, as a result of that vote, boy, the market is happy this morning. We've got big gap ups in the market pending here this morning. So let's dig in and see what we've got going on here this morning. First off, if we take a look at what's going on in Asian markets last night, Asian markets were bullish across the board. We had Australia up $66.20 or 0.75%. Hong Kong up 407.23 or 1.55%. South Korea was up 119.48 or 3.02%. Talk about volatility. And then the Nikkei up 635.39 or 1.26%. India was up 82.05 or 0.32%. And Shanghai was higher by 21.04 or 0.53%. If we take a look at what happened or is happening in Europe this morning, decisive bullishness here this morning on this news, a hope of the reopening of the government. DAX is right now up 369.59 or 1.57%. FTSE is higher by 94.08 or 0.97%, and the CAC is higher by 96.25 or 1.21% this morning. If we take a look at U.S. futures, Dow futures are at this current moment looking for a gap up of about 172 points. We've got S&P 500 futures up 58.25 this morning, and we have NASDAQ futures up 344.25 this morning. Zooming here this morning in the NASDAQ here today. So let's take a look at a few other things going on here. Let's see what's going on in bonds here this morning. Well, bonds, they're moving up. We've got the 2-year bond still holding in there at 3.59%, but our 10-year bond is coming in at 4.13%, and the 30-year bond is at 4.73%. If we take a look at what we've got going on in the dollar is just ever so slightly higher here this morning. Notice that we're coming into this upside trend and a little bit of price support, trying to hold there on the US dollar. Right now up just over 3 cents in the dollar. If we take a look at how that's affecting precious metals here this morning, well, we've got metals all up across the board. Right now we have gold this morning up 79 points or 4,088.80 an ounce here this morning. Let's take a look at GLD. So a nice little pop up here. Silver is also gapping higher here this morning, substantially up $1.73 an ounce or $49.87 an ounce here this morning. Really moving to the upside. If we take a look at copper Copper's also moving up by a little bit over 8 cents here this morning, trying to push higher. We've got platinum up $33.70 an ounce, or 2.18%, and palladium is also moving up $31.80 an ounce, or 2.27% this morning. Taking a look at cryptos are bouncing back here today. We've got Bitcoin this morning gapping up substantially, right now up 1,603.95, or 1.53% higher. We've got Ether moving higher by 3208, or 0.90% higher, and Solana is higher by $2.65, or 1.59% this morning. And green across the board in those cryptos. If we take a look at what's going on in oil here this morning, oil trying to pop up a little bit here, but it has pulled back from its high. We've got oil futures at the moment up $12.5, or 59.87.5 a barrel. If we look at Brent crude, coming in at 63.74 a barrel, and natural gas is higher this morning by 16 cents, sharply gapping up here this morning, 3.75% here this morning on natural gas. Big push here this morning. So what does that mean for the day? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up and let's get ready for the Monday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thanks so much for being here. I very much appreciate it. Let's take a look at these index charts, see if we can figure out how we might want to approach the market for today. Remember, we want to look at the charts for what they are, not for what we want them to be. We want to shake off that bias and really focus in on the potential here in the market. Well, clearly on Friday, nice bounce back rally here on Friday, putting in a nice little reversal candle here. We weren't, however, able to have enough energy to break through this little downtrend, but this morning we're going to gap up here substantial enough to maybe give us a chance that we can stretch on through and come back up here and retest this area of price resistance. Now, with the government being reopened, it doesn't mean that everything's going to resume to normal here just immediately. But there's a lot of excitement on this morning. So watch that carefully as we push up into these areas of resistance in the chart. We'll want to be watching this pretty closely, because remember, it's never this first move down that matters. Yeah, it can be painful, but what matters is how we respond to the rally back. If we were to move up into these areas and show any kind of bearishness that shows up here in this area, that could constitute the lower high in the market. So watch that carefully. We're going to need, if those bulls can get anything done, we're going to need us to break through up in here and then prove to hold. Prove that we can hang on in here and show some bullishness pushing through beyond that. That creates that upside trend here in the chart. So if the bulls can continue to find that inspiration this morning, we need to break through this area up here and see if we can get up into this next area of price resistance and prove to hold someplace up in here, so that we have that opportunity to hold that higher low in the diamonds. If the bears were to have anything to say, if we were to whipsaw today, gap up here this morning, get something disappointing that happened here in the day, and we're to whip this back down, well, the first thing we're going to do is watch the top of Friday's candle to be tested. If that doesn't hold, look at this support right in here. If that support doesn't hold, I would look for a retest of Friday's lows. Let's take a look at our SPY. SPY also beautiful hammering pattern in there on Friday, pushing back up, holding on to this price support in the chart, and that's all looking copacetic. If the bulls can continue to find this inspiration here today, we need to break back through that resistance. Notice we're popping up in there this morning. If we can get enough follow through inspiration, we need to pop through there and prove that we can hold a higher low. Now, we actually don't have to hold a higher low above that level. We can hold right in here and create that upside trend here in the chart. So watch that carefully. But that would be really important if we could break back through. What we do not want to see, if you're a bull, we do not want to see this gap immediately get reversed and filled. We could easily see that today in a whipsaw. So if we pull back and fill this gap here today, if we can hold the high of Friday, we're probably going to be okay. But if that were to break, then I would start looking at areas like this where we could move right on through and retest some of these areas of price support in the chart. And I would not rule that out with the emotion that we see in the market right now. So keep an eye on that. Let's take a look at our QQQ. Very much the same. Our QQQ's got a bit more work here to do. We've got to get back through this downtrend here in the chart. Good gap up this morning after following through on Friday. If the bulls can continue to find that inspiration to the upside, we need to push right up in here into this area of price resistance in the chart, and then somehow either break through or prove that we can hold that higher low up here in the QQQ. So kind of keep an eye on that. We've got a lot of work here to do on that. If the bears were to have anything to say and we're going to find this resistance, and if we were to pull back in here, well, just kind of keep an eye. Our pullback here could retest Friday's high, and then if that were to break, then we're going to push back down possibly through that area of price support. We'll start looking at areas in here, the chart, that we can catch as a price support if something were to come up on the bearish side. So watch that carefully. And then if we take a look at our our IWM. IWM had a beautiful bounce back yesterday, or I should say on Friday, pushing up into here. And this morning we are breaking back through this price resistance here in the chart. So watch that carefully. If we can continue to show that bullishness here this morning and hold up in here, or even push right on through to test this area of price resistance, that'll be something to be watching for, because we have that potential then we can hold that higher low. If the bears were to have anything to say and we see those bears push back, well, first retest of this support and then maybe filling the gap in here on the top side of that candle. So watch that carefully. And remember, if we were to fail beyond that point, well, we have that potential. We could start going back through this progression here, testing these areas of price support, and maybe coming right back into here in any kind of a whipsaw. Certainly a possibility. Then let's take a look at our VIX. Our VIX has been problematic here for us. Despite the government reopening, it hasn't resolved the problem of overvaluation in this market. So our VIX has been really problematic, but gave us a really good shooting star type pattern here on Friday, pulling back from that price resistance area up here in the chart. So with the big gap up this morning, I'm expecting this is going to be falling here today. If we can push enough, we need to break down through this area of support here on the VIX and actually show that those bulls have the energy and wherewithal to move on through and push on through to the upside, really ignoring evaluations. And that's going to be an interesting question, whether that can occur. So watch that carefully here. Remember, anything that we would hold a higher low in here, any place in here, and see those bears follow through, well, that's where the real selling can begin. So just kind of keep an eye on that. Our T2122 indicator in here. Let's get that going on the daily here. If we take a look at T2122, that rally back up on Friday brought us back above 50%. And I would guess this gap up this morning, this is a big gap up here this morning, could move us substantially up here toward that bearish reversal zone. Now, if we can break back through up here, which I suspect we will, this morning in the gap up open, watch that carefully as we push up here toward that bearish resistance high. That could be up around those resistance levels we pointed out in the index charts, so watch that carefully. It's going to be really critical that we see breadth, and we'll talk about that in just a second. If the bears were to have anything to say, I want you to recognize the fact that we've got about an equal opportunity for those bears at the moment. This morning, the gap up, it'll be definitely giving us a lot of opportunity for the bears to push back if we were to happen to stumble on anything. Then let's take a look at our T2108. T2108 percentage of stocks above their 40-day moving average improved on Friday, pushing back up above 35%, holding in there. So if we can find that bullish action in here this morning to be really fruitful, we need to break back through this little downtrending area here, get back above 40%, start working our way back up toward 50% of the stocks above their 40-day moving average. If those bears were to have anything to say, though, if we run into any resistance or reason that evaluations continue to be a concern, well, just watch that carefully for that potential pullback. Don't see that this morning, but that could happen in a whipsaw. T2107, also nice little bounce back there on Friday. We got back above the 45% area of stocks above their 200-day moving average. If those bulls can continue to follow through here, then what we need to see is that push on through, see if we can retest some of this resistance up here, see if we can break through that downtrend up here and around that 50% or just above that in T2108. If the bears were to have anything to say, well, we can see this will be a critical area here if those bears were to push back. And then our T2101, and this is going to be the critical thing. On our relief rally back on Friday, we had no breadth following it. It was remarkable that we moved that much, and we don't have participation here in the market. It has been awful, and that's just showing that super focus into tech only. And that's what's been holding us up while the majority of stocks have been suffering dramatically here in the market. So as we moved up on Friday, we actually saw breadth declining. Now, today, we need to see that breadth to the bullish side. We need to see that they actually get a follow through here, that when we push to the upside, the bulls are actually pushing strongly to the upside. That breadth comes along with it. If that doesn't occur, then I'm worried that we could whipsaw here today. We could gap up big and then drift all the way back. We'll have to watch carefully for that possibility here. Just be careful racing in, assuming that we're just going to tear it up and go right back to the highs. We may, but I would not assume that in this current situation unless we start to see that bullish breadth really starting to show itself here in the market. And we've been suffering from that a lot because we're so centric in just into the Mag 7s. And if we don't get the rest of the market moving with breadth in here, that's going to be a problem for us. So watch that carefully here today. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here. Our economic calendar, we've got a few things to be paying attention to, but it's overall a really light week on the economic calendar. As you can see in here, we've got some bond auctions here this morning. Not much, or this afternoon, not much for us to worry about. We got 3, 6, 6 month contracts in here, and then a 3-year contract. So we're just going to borrow a lot of money. On Tuesday, we have an NFIB Small Business Optimism Report, and Barr is speaking. On Wednesday, as you can see, it's mostly Fed speak. We got mortgage apps, and we got 3, 4, 5, 6 Fed speakers on the day. We've got some bond auctions in here as well, borrowing more money. And then if we take a look at Thursday, this is where it starts to get interesting this week. We've got a CPI report and a jobless claims report. We might actually get one if the government gets reopened. Keep an eye on that. We've got bond auctions in here to be paying attention to. We've got a petroleum status report, some more Fed speak, another bond auction here on the 30-year, and then Fed balance sheet here at the end of the day. And then, of course, CPI on Thursday. We typically get PPI following that. So PPI on Friday on that final demand. So a couple of inflation reports that we'll want to be watching pretty closely toward the end of the week. We're also going to get those retail sales, which really could be market moving. Heading into this fourth quarter, thinking about the Christmas period of time, we need to see some good, strong retail sales in here. So watch that. Business inventories, Schmidt will be speaking. We've got a natural gas report, Baker Hughes, and a couple more Fed speakers as we wind out this week. Now remember, it could be either tomorrow or Wednesday where we finally get the government reopened. So kind of keep that in mind. We still have a lot of challenges until we get there. It's pretty ugly in the air traffic control system right now. So, and travel is a mess. So watch that carefully. Let's take a look at what we've got going on in our earnings calendar here for today. And our earnings calendar, well, we're really going to start slowing down. Now, we still have some big days coming up this week, but as you can see, it is a much lighter calendar here today. And we're through the majority of those earnings. There's still going to be quite a few notables, but we really slowed down in the numbers here of earnings. Which is normal, so nothing to worry about. It's just we're going to run out of maybe some of that hyper interest in the market, that nervous energy and volatility that shows up in earnings reports. Now, our biggest day is going to be Thursday as normal. We're looking about, between Wednesday and Thursday, a little over 140 companies each reporting on those 2 days. And then we really, after next week, this week, we really start to fall off in those numbers and earnings reports. So kind of keep that in mind. Take a screenshot here if you want to grab that list of the notables here for today. Just keep in mind there are more reports than this. These are just the notables for the day. Let's take a look at some stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if you could do me that quick favor, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, if you could please click that subscribe button on YouTube and also click that bell icon when it pops up so you'll be notified every time I post a video. You know, I'm always up here at my desk by 5 a.m. to pull all of this information together and get these videos out. And I really appreciate the kind support that everyone shows for this kind of content with no hype and no prediction in it. So thank you much for everyone who does support the channel, who clicks that thumbs up button, leaves a brief comment. Those who share these videos on your social media feed, you truly humble me. And I am so thankful for that. So thank you everyone for your kind support. Let's take a look at a few stocks that could be setting up. Remember, everyone, these are not recommendations to buy or sell any security. And I think we're going to have to be pretty careful here as well. With such a big gap up, watching for that potential whipsaw here on the day. But there are certainly some very good looking stocks out there to pay attention to. One of them, I think one of them that's just looking stellar here at the moment is Apple. Bullishness here today might be just enough to kind of push us through that little consolidating push here, and we might see Apple move on through to the upside. Watch that one closely. If you take a look at stocks like Broadcom might have that opportunity to catch a little hammering pattern in here and start holding and maybe start seeing that little bit of bullish push back to the upside. So if you're looking at some of those big techs, those may be something to pay attention to. Micron continues to be a monster mover here, just running to the upside. No particular worries or issues there. Intel still holding in that support area. We're sliding out here toward this longer trend. I'd be watching for an opportunity maybe in this area for that to push on through here to the upside. So keep an eye on Intel, and you got to keep an eye on those techs right now because that's where so much energy is being driven into the market. Take a look at some of our big banks. JP Morgan, nice breakthrough up here, rested in this area. Every reason to believe that could push right on through here, make new record highs in JP Morgan. BAC is probably setting up here, nice little rest and consolidation. Just need that nice little bullish push in here. That might push us on through. Now, one thing we will want to be paying attention to is the repo market. The reverse repo market has been remarkable here. It's now really pushed up there. So you probably haven't been hearing much about it, but there is a lot of activity shoring up the overnight repo here. So keep an eye on that. But that said, a lot of these stocks, Morgan Stanley also looking very good, potentially setting up, hammering in here on Friday, just needs a little push through to the upside. So I'd keep an eye on some of those guys. Take a look at Roku. I think Roku is a very nice looking chart setting up in here, nice little resting pullback. Just need a little bit of bullish push, and today might be just the kind of energy that gets us going in here. Watch that carefully for that push on through here to the upside. You know, you want to continue to keep an eye on these uranium plays. Although this had a pretty substantial pullback to fill this gap in CCJ, you know, I really don't see anything terribly wrong here with this chart at the moment. It would be if we make a lower high, that would be a concern. But keep an eye on some of these uranium plays. We know that the only thing that really matters right now to tech is that we have enough energy. And they're going to build everything that they can and have everything on that they can get on to get us the power that they need for AI. So watch that carefully here in CCJ. UEC, now I have a bias on this one. I am holding this one, and this did break some support in here. So I am a little bit more concerned on this one. There's that lower high. That's always the concern. But I'm holding this longer term in here, and you know, we just came back in here to find this longer term trend. So if we can hold in this area on that longer term trend, then no worries. I've made a lot of money on this year, and if you look at this weekly chart, heard anything wrong with that longer term. So if this holds in here, I would be looking for that next opportunity to the upside, and every reason to believe that that could be possible. So watch that carefully in some of these uranium plays. You might also want to start keeping an eye on BTU again. BTU, nice little pushback up here, breaking this downturn. This, I know coal is really triggering for a lot of people, but the thing is, when it comes to AI, tech doesn't seem to care anymore. Turn it on. We need the power. So watch that carefully here in BTU, holding support, maybe a little tiny inverted head and shoulders pattern forming up there. Watch that carefully. BTU coming on back around. Watch that carefully. Things like SoFi setting up in here. More of that financial. That's looking pretty good. Pushed back nicely on Friday. If that could follow on through and break through up here, I would keep an eye on that. Let's take a look at some of those commodity things in here. I'm going to go with our producers here in oil. EXE breaking through up here. This is a pattern that I am very interested in, and a huge supplier for natural gas, and very well positioned for the liquefied natural gas infrastructure that's coming online here soon. So watch that carefully here on EXE. But if we take a look at XEL in here, our energy sector ETF, breaking through this downtrend in here. So nice hold right in here, higher low. If this holds up in here, I would look for that next opportunity to the upside. And there are some of those stocks in that sector that are really looking pretty good. You can come right over here and grab an entire list of them in TC2000, and you can see I'm loving the way Valero's looking in here. I'd keep an eye on Valero, Schlumberger setting up in here. So watch those closely. A lot of these starting to pick up. Warren Buffett's favorite, Occidental's got a ways to go, but there are some good-looking stocks here. Some are coming off of bottoms. Some are still holding really good patterns in here, like ExxonMobil. Big shot up there on Friday, so I'd keep an eye on some of these big oil out here. I think there's some opportunity coming in those. Keep a close eye on that. You might also want to be keeping an eye on natural gas. Natural gas, we talked about this earlier this morning. This is popping through this bottoming pattern in here. Anytime we break a base like this, if we can prove to hold out here, that can give you some major opportunities to the upside. And I'm just going to move this to a longer term weekly chart. Look at that beautiful basing pattern in here. If this were to rest back in here at all, look for that push. And I would say the same if you take a look at Boyle. Boyle might be more in your liking, breaking through this basing pattern here. Nice little hold, trying to push on through here this morning. Watch that carefully, and here again on that longer term weekly, breaking through up here, a little resting pullback. Could set up some opportunities there in natural gas. I would keep an eye on that. I would also be keeping an eye on some of these grain commodities. Big change in behavior here on soybeans. Big push to the upside, breaking out of this basing pattern. You can see we're resting back here just a little bit. Look for that next opportunity in some of those grain commodities as well. So with that, everyone, hey, I want to wish you all a fantastic day. I want to wish you great results in your trading. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And I want to wish you all the very best today. And I will see you right back here, bright and early Tuesday morning. Take care, y'all. Have a great one.
Black and white candles, my stars in the dark. Price is my king, got that fire and spark. Rideways my ranch on the trader's trail. Trading with heart where the profits prevail.